Hey everybody, this is Brian. We are about 2 weeks out from the Krispy Kreme Challenge, aka the Donut Run, where Aaron and I run 5 miles, eat a dozen donuts, try and get it all done in an hour, and ultimately raise a bunch of money for the people at the NC Children's Hospital who take care of a bunch of very sick kids and their families. We want to thank everybody who's made a donation up to this point, and we want to say that if you'd like to make a generous donation, you can go to thecloudcast.net. In the top right corner, there is a button, and any and all donations are greatly appreciated. 100% of the funds go to the NC Children's Hospital. So thank you for your generosity, and thank you for your ongoing support of the show. And now, on to the Cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast, coming to you live from the massive studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just myself today, and today we're actually going to do one of the first things. We've talked about serverless for a long time, and today we're going to sort of do one of the first serverless designated Cloudcasts for 2017. So very excited. We've had a chance to touch on bits and pieces of serverless in the past, but today we've got a very exciting guest and a couple of very interesting announcements coming out. So very excited to have Madhura Maskasky, who's VP of Product for Platform 9. Madhura, welcome to the show.
Fantastic, Brian. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be here. Yeah,
actually, I think welcome back to the show. We had you on when you guys first launched, and things are still going really, really well. When you first launched, the focus of the platform was very much around managed and hosted OpenStack. But we're now in 2017. Technologies are changing. Customer sentiments are changing. First off, give us a sense of where is Platform 9 today, and then you guys have a couple of very, very cool announcements that are now hitting the marketplace. So maybe give us a sense of what those announcements are as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Brian, thanks. So, just a quick recap of Platform 9. We were a company founded in 2013, right, by a set of ex-VMware engineers, myself included. Today at Platform 9, I play the role of VP of Product. But Platform 9 was founded with the manifesto of making cloud infrastructure consumption fundamentally easy, right, using software as a service. What we do is we enable enterprises to easily manage infrastructure anywhere, across their private data centers or service provider hosted infrastructure or public clouds. And we do that using the best of breed open source cloud native frameworks, right? To that extent, we started by supporting managed OpenStack. That was our first supported product, and we pioneered a fundamentally unique SaaS managed model around it. Then earlier last year or mid last year, we announced beta availability of managed Kubernetes, where we were doing applying the same SaaS managed model to Kubernetes. Today Platform 9 is about 46 employees strong. We are about 50 customers strong. We've seen a pretty significant growth in customers, about 4x year-over-year growth. And these are managed OpenStack customers, right? Because the managed Kubernetes offering has still been in beta until today, that is. But we've seen significant growth in customers and a strong vouching and support for our managed model. And we are now recreating it with managed Kubernetes.
Right. So, and I hear this all the time in talking to different businesses is, they're under this kind of pressure to figure out how to build software better, how to ship software better, how to, be able to respond to markets faster. And in a lot of cases, they see these new cloud native frameworks, so Kubernetes and containers and some of the other things, but yet they don't have the skills in house to necessarily take advantage of them, or maybe they're not organized to do DevOps in an efficient manner. And having these managed offerings is really, really important to them because it just lets them get started. Are you seeing any other big trends drive people towards the offerings that you have, whether it's a type of application or a specific type of business type of need that are out there, use case maybe?
Yeah, in general, we kind of founded Platform 9 with a couple of key insights, right? Going back to the point you're making, Brian, which is, the first important insight is that if you look at the world that the DevOps or IT teams need to operate within today, and we call this the post-cloud era. It's a world of a ton of diversity, right? That you just have to make sense of. Diversity in terms of legacy and cloud, private and public, virtualized, containerized, and coupling that with a ton of new open source services that developers always want to embrace, right? Because developers fundamentally like choice. They don't want to be restricted to a single platform, a single cloud for that matter, right? So we believe fundamentally that ops teams are left to manage this diversity without having a good manageability solution. In the traditional model, our second insight is that the traditional DIY or professional services-based model of consuming shrink-wrap software, while it did work for the relatively simplistic stacks of the past, which were scale-up stacks, it fundamentally breaks when it comes to today's distributed systems like OpenStack, like Kubernetes, or any new powerful open source frameworks that you look at today. Those frameworks need a completely different operational paradigm, and we think that's the as-a-service paradigm, because as-a-service is the only model that covers not just day zero or day one, but also your day end problems, right? Which is your ops and the cost around maintaining and babysitting that stack.
Right. And obviously Kubernetes tends to be OpenStack allowed you to run sort of any application. There was different sort of frame of minds as to whether those should be more legacy applications because you could fit them in a VM context, or they should be newer. Kubernetes tends to be very, very container centric, and you're seeing people wanting to build new types of things with containers. What are you hearing from people about demand around container usage versus VM usage, or just, developer demands driving towards containers?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The entire container movement has been embraced, powered by developers, right? Which is developers realizing that containers are just a better, more lightweight, more portable tool than VMs in many cases for building their applications. What's important to recognize is containers just by themselves are a nice, lightweight tool utility to do things differently compared to VMs, but they're not nearly sufficient to really start powerfully re-architecting your applications, using the new paradigms, right? Because you will essentially create new sets of problems of container sprawl management, unless you invest in the right container orchestration framework, such as Kubernetes, right? And the big reason why we think Kubernetes is emerging as the de facto standard for container orchestration is because of all those built-in semantics that it enables developers to consume without having to repeat and do redundant work. Right.
Now, beyond the Kubernetes offering, moving the Kubernetes offering into GA, you announced something very new, sort of unique in that it is a serverless offering called Fission, and it's an open source. The technology is open source. Talk about what is Fission and what's your thinking behind releasing it as open source, maybe as opposed to a managed service?
Yes, no, absolutely. We're really excited about Fission. What Fission is, in a nutshell, is an open source alternative to AWS Lambda for doing function as a service, right? And really what it comes from is, if you look at Lambda, AWS really started the serverless movement with Lambda. But one of the limitations there, as we see it, is Lambda is only as powerful as the integrations that it supports, right? And those triggers, those events, those integrations are all restricted to the AWS ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and we hear that from our customers, and kind of goes back to the earlier point I was making, which is developers fundamentally like choice. They don't like being restricted, being asked to only use AWS specific services. They want to use their Kafka for their streaming events, and they want to consume those events in their Lambda, but they are not able to today. Right. So what Fission is it's designed to be the de facto open source alternative to Lambda. Right. So we are starting with a focus on Kubernetes. So it's an open source framework that is built on top of Kubernetes. And while doing that, it also has a nice advantage of making consumption of Kubernetes also easy.
Okay. Now, you highlighted Lambda, and there seems to be sort of two schools of thought or two camps that are kind of evolving around serverless, more or less. One of them is obviously Lambda, and then one of them tends to be this collection of different projects that are emerging, which, like Fission, tend to be more open. They're open source based, but they're also built on top of kind of the construct of containers or Kubernetes. What do you see? Do you see that containers play a big role in this way of doing serverless, or is it really more just that the framework is open and we're going to see people be able to plug it into other sets of services as they need to?
No, we definitely see containers playing a big role in serverless, right? Just simply because they, for a number of reasons, they make the proposition of simplicity and portability a really key one. And if you think of serverless, if you're looking to run just a small piece of code to start with, at least, and we think serverless frameworks are going to evolve from there. But today you use them to run a piece of code for some kind of automated serverization, right? Which is the developer just focuses on writing that piece of code, and the framework takes it and hides all the details of how that code is run. And using containers and even Kubernetes from our perspective as that underlying platform to do that provides a number of benefits of efficiency in delivering that function as a service platform.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you give us? Is there the project is still in its very early days, Fission. Can you give us a sense of what you think are some of the unique characteristics of this project versus, say, what somebody might be able to do with Lambda if they're familiar with that, or at least matching capabilities?
Definitely, yeah. So where Fission is similar in Lambda is that it's also designed to provide a very intuitive developer experience, right? But it does differ in Lambda in, I would say, three kind of important ways. The first one is the fact that it can run anywhere, right? Unlike Lambda, Fission can run on anywhere that Kubernetes can run, which means a developer can run it on just his laptop, or in his company's private data center or a service provider or any public cloud of his choice. Mm-hmm. So it fundamentally has that vendor neutrality, no lock-in proposition built in. Right. Second, because it's open source, it's open and extensible. And so we see it enabling a much wider ecosystem. Definitely the Kubernetes ecosystem itself, developers, contributors will benefit a lot, we think, from Fission. And third, because it's Kubernetes based, again, it helps accelerate that time of utility for Kubernetes.
Right. Yeah, you can obviously build on the huge, sort of growth and speed at which the Kubernetes community is building. Do you see, obviously, again, early in the project days, but do you see this as something where you may try and push something like the CNCF or another one of these large foundations to help make it become a much broader standard, in terms of usage, or is it still too early days to see where adoption might be?
No, absolutely. We our goal is to try to make it as part of CNCF. We've definitely have conversations started. We think that would be the right next step for Fission, because we do want the Kubernetes community to embrace this as the de facto project framework for doing function as a service using Kubernetes.
Right. And would you expect that since this runs on Kubernetes, this would become something down the road for Platform 9 to be a managed service similar to what Lambda is? Or is it still sort of too early days to determine, when this might go into something like beta for Platform 9?
So no, we definitely plan on supporting it as a managed service at some point, right? The timeline is TBD because at this point, the focus is on building Fission, building it out as that open source project and building out on the roadmap, working with the community, listening to the feedback, etc. But yes, you will see Platform 9 releasing it as a managed service, and we'll be making specific announcements around that sometime in 2017.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to get back a little bit to kind of what's been driving you towards towards managed Kubernetes. Obviously, early success with customers that wanted to migrate. The company Platform 9, lots of background from VMware. A lot of your engineers had come from VMware. You deployed the OpenStack for people as a cloud framework. Now you're moving into Kubernetes. What are some of those conversations that you hear from the market that says, we wanted an alternative cloud platform. These are some of the use cases that we see Kubernetes benefits from, those types of conversations.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to where Platform 9 started with our vision, right? And it was really to make the every single stage of your cloud infrastructure journey easy. And if you look at that journey, right, it started with physical servers way back, was quickly disrupted through virtualization when VMware came along, and we were part of that journey, and we really saw that dramatic shift in terms of the benefit that it offered to end users. Right. And then public cloud happened and infrastructure as a service became popular. Today, it's all about microservices with containers. And tomorrow, we think it's going to be about serverless, or that's going to be a new way of doing PaaS from our perspective. Right. Okay. And if you look at every stage, it's become so disruptive because it's fundamentally raised the level of abstraction and hence added more business value, more value to developers, taken away more work from their hands, right, that they had to repeatedly do otherwise, simplified their lives. So, that's kind of been our vision. And that's why you see us starting with OpenStack, now having supported Kubernetes and now serverless. And as we do speak with our customers, you see these trends really playing along really significantly, right? Meaning developers, again, are the initiators of a lot of these movements. And we see in our OpenStack customers, while VM, so virtualization, is not going to go away anytime soon, right? Definitely for a lot of stateful workloads, there is really no reason to containerize them. A lot of either new applications or existing applications that are core to a business that the development teams are aware of having some limitations. Those are the places where developers are taking opportunity to fundamentally re-architect things and write them using containers and leveraging these microservices paradigms, right, in frameworks like Kubernetes. And we see that shift happening with containers already. We think it's gonna go strong over 2017 plus. Kubernetes adoption is going to significantly increase and improve. And as that happens, that will further plant seeds for that next level, which is serverless, or doing essentially platform as a service with serverless. We think that both DevOps and dev teams are going to start realizing that a lot of work that they do in writing these server utilities can be fundamentally simplified if they instead run a framework like Fission.
Yep. Yeah. And one clarification, because like I said, you guys have been on the show, but it's been a little while. The Platform 9 sort of architecture is the control plane, which you guys build and manage, runs out of the cloud, but the resources themselves typically run on a customer's premises, correct? Like the servers and so forth, correct?
That's right. So when we started with OpenStack was at that time restricted to just private infrastructure, right? And so we do have this, we pioneered this unique SaaS managed model where the control plane lives in the cloud, and through our agents, we integrate with your data plane and then deploy the data plane components in the private infrastructure. Since then, we also made OpenStack hybrid, right? So through our OpenStack Omni announcement, which we made last year, now OpenStack can manage, Platform 9 managed OpenStack can manage both your private and public endpoints, such as an Amazon AWS endpoint. And Kubernetes fundamentally is multi-cloud. So with Kubernetes, managed OpenStack supports a number of cloud providers out of the box. Amazon is one of them. Private data center is always one, or OpenStack or VMware. But yeah, the model is again SaaS managed, where the control plane still lives as a SaaS hosted service.
Okay, and I want to ask you one last question. You made a comment about platform as a service and this sort of evolution of what that looks like. It's been interesting the last couple of weeks. There's been a couple of articles written by various people that say, well, maybe platform as a service is dead, or maybe the definition of that is happening. What do you see from you mentioned that containers, serverless, these types of things, because they're very developer centric, tend to be in that platform space. What do you see from the marketplace? What do you hear from the marketplace in terms of, do they care that something is called platform as a service? Do they just look at these evolutionary services as that's just the new way that developers are doing things? Or do you see any distinction that people care about how things are evolving in that sort of platform as a service space?
Yeah, so if you think of the platform as a service movement, it was really started with that goal that developers should focus on just writing code, right?
Yeah.
That was the fundamental root of it, and which makes a ton of sense. And that's the reality is quite opposite of that, right? Unless you're using a good PaaS platform today, developers or ops do end up spending a lot of time doing a lot of redundant infrastructure-related work that could really be simplified, right? And if you look at what microservices does with Kubernetes, and then layering something like Fission on top, it is the fantastic opportunity, we think, of doing the next generation PaaS, right? Which is you truly just focus on writing your code. Your PaaS layer, such as Fission, has support for different language runtimes. You are able to focus on just that, that core expertise, and letting that framework abstract away the underlying details. And that's kind of somewhat true with Lambda or serverless today, right? But it's restricted to writing these really, simple, small functions. And there are some challenges of doing that at scale with something like Lambda, right? Where they have been, cases or, examples of creating or having created a lot of complexity by having a large set of functions that are registered either through Lambda, et cetera. And there are complexities of working with the internet, with the gateway, and et cetera.
Yep.
So, where we see Fission going is really evolving into being that right platform for doing PaaS in future, which means it will need to solve these problems of running functions at scale and really truly enabling a developer SDK of sorts to start introducing this as a new paradigm for writing your applications.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think you did it's an excellent comment about sort of, the stuff is evolving. It evolves very quickly, and getting bogged down with some definition that was, several years ago, doesn't really do anybody any good. As long as you're ultimately making it simpler for developers to write code, and hopefully, operations has less to worry about, but is able to scale it. That's really, really important. Listen, I'm going to wrap it up there. Where can people find out more about the Kubernetes offering, as well as what's going on with Fission, maybe how to get involved with that from an open source perspective? What's the best way to go find that information for people?
Yeah, so, for the managed Kubernetes offering, the best place to find out more about is our Platform9's website, platform9.com. On the website, you will find the press release announcement details, as well as there is a, managed Kubernetes landing page with all the feature information and how to try it, right? We're also added managed Kubernetes to our sandbox environment, which is available online too. So you can instantly try it out. No hardware needed. It's fully free. So that's the best way to experience it. And I encourage people to try it. As far as Fission goes, the website is fission.io. And there you'll find the GitHub repo, which is available. The project is available as open source project for anyone to download and try out on any Kubernetes deployment, not just managed Kubernetes. The Git link is github.com/Fission. So I do encourage folks to try that out. Share feedback with us via Twitter. Platform9's Twitter handle is at Platform9sys, and Fission's Twitter handle is at Fission.io.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, we will get all of that into the show notes for anybody who is looking for links later on. So thank you so much for being on today. Folks, thanks as always for listening. If by chance we've got about 2 weeks left before the Krispy Kreme run, if you'd like to make a donation for that, we're about 57% of our goal. And for Madhura and for Aaron, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.